Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the fifth episode of the Beyond the Assembly Line podcast. My name is Harsh.
I'm Sommie, and today we're here with a special guest, Kelly Shea.
Hi.
I met Kelly at an event here at UCF during Engineering Week. It was an event based around intellectual property, and Kelly was one of the guest speakers. And she was able to tell us a little bit about her story, how she went from being an elementary education major to going through the entire engineering process to create an innovative product, turning that into a business, and now working as an entrepreneur and an engineer. So thanks, Kelly, for taking the time out to come sit down with us, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into her story today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was born in New York, but kind of grew up in the Tampa Bay area. I always had an interest in inventing products. I mean, I grew up watching Shark Tank, like probably almost every other kind of crazy inventor, entrepreneurial minded person out there, but never really knew how to start, right? So I just kept a list of inventions on my phone. Since seventh grade, since I got a phone, and I would just always think of these ideas. It was so funny. I'd run around the locker room in middle school and I'd be like, hey, does anyone have problems they face? And I remember actually doing that. And so it was just funny. But it wasn't until, I got to UCF where I realized there's resources out there I can use to kind of help me get things going and invent something of my own. So yeah, but I was an elementary ed major and kind of went through that whole process that I know we'll get to in a bit as well, but yeah.
All right, let's go all the way back then. So
Okay.
You started out as an elementary education major.
Mhm.
What made you want to study that? Was that always the plan, a family member, something like that?
So no, I was actually elementary ed, probably against everyone's wishes. My parents, they saw they saw me. I loved working with kids. I volunteered probably since I was about 12 years old with programs in the Tampa Bay area. So one was called like Girls with Confidence, where it was, I went through that as a kid. I went through the programming, and then I became a volunteer as soon as I was of age. And I really helped to work with the students there and do exactly what it is, build up their confidence. We'd do fun activities, and I just always knew I had a passion for helping others and working with kids. And I myself, actually, I struggled in school growing up. I didn't know how to read actually until second or third grade. So I was just really inspired. I had that one teacher, Miss Shepherd, who worked with me so hard to kind of get me to the point where I needed to be. And it just made me, have a love and passion for working with kids.
That's awesome.
I think that those people, whenever we're young, those teachers or those role models in some way, I think they do play a huge role in our lives. I feel like everyone remembers, you remember Miss Shepherd. I remember Miss Debbie at my church. I feel like those people play a huge role, and it kind of inspires us later on to want to help out those kids that are in a similar situation.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what education is, such a special space. Like now, teachers have to be creative with what they're doing, especially competing against phones and technology.
Right.
Like you have to be really creative in the way you're teaching and educating and thinking outside the box. So it's a fun space. And, I just always wanted to kind of make that sort of impact like they did on us,
Absolutely. I feel like you had a full circle moment, like going back into that same space and volunteering again. So
Yeah.
that is really,
sure.
really key. Really, really nice.
So you were an elementary education major, but then you went on this whole journey.
Mm.
So were you always interested in engineering and innovation, or did that kind of start once you got to UCF? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was always interested in it. But as I mentioned, I did struggle a bit in school. Growing up, something in high school clicked for me, and I ended up getting really great grades in high school, at a very competitive high school, I might add. But I just didn't, nothing made sense to me in elementary and middle school. Math didn't make sense. Science didn't make sense. So, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I wanted to be a teacher because of that impact and because of my love for working with kids. But I always wanted to invent something, but I thought like, hey, maybe I'm not smart enough. You know what I mean? Like maybe I don't know enough. Algebra doesn't make enough sense to me. You know what I mean? Like those types of things. So I kind of discounted myself for a long time. And then when I got to UCF, I was just kind of like, why not? Why am I putting myself into this hole when there are people that can help me? And I've experienced that. So let's get things going.
Yeah, I think that mindset shift once you get to college is very impactful.
Yeah.
Because for me, I was always a soccer player. So that was my main
Mhm.
focus from 5 years old all the way through like the end of senior year.
Yeah.
But once I got to UCF, making that switch to becoming more of an academic and engineering,
Mm.
I kind of had that imposter syndrome. Like, can I do this against all these engineers and stuff? I don't know how to code and I don't know if I'm that good
Yeah.
at math. But like you said, I was kind of just like, why not? Like, I can figure this out. If I don't know it right now, I can study, I can put the time and I can figure it out. Like, why not?
Yeah, yeah. And I like so I was a 2020 grad in high school, so I didn't have graduation. You know that whole sob story of I didn't have all this stuff, right? And I got here and all my classes were online. So what else was I going to do? Just sit in my dorm room, like or if you go out on campus, you have to wear a mask. Like it was just one of those things where it's like, what do I do? So yeah, I do the mindset shift in college and kind of going through all that, I think really impacted what I'm doing. And I'm so grateful to be doing what I am now. So yeah.
How did you make that transition from going from studying elementary education and having that be your main focus to going about creating an engineering product?
Yeah, so I can kind of walk through the story of how I came up with my first product. I think will help with that side. So I, as I mentioned, I always thought of things, but never really knew how to actually make them. So when I was in college, my boyfriend and we've been together for 6 years now, and it was my first time meeting his aunt and uncle.
Okay.
So his aunt and uncle lived in Apopka, which is about a 45-minute car ride to UCF, if for those of you who might not be in this exact area. But I was packing my bag and I tried to lock the top of my bottle, like my CeraVe face wash, and the lock failed. So it opened back up and it spilled all over my clothes. So since this was my first time meeting them, I was so embarrassed and I didn't tell anyone. I just dealt with my soapy clothes the whole weekend. We went swimming. I was like the suds around me, whatever, push them away. But I was just, that was, again, I had that spark moment of, hey, I have this problem. My mom wasn't with me in my dorm to tell me to buy Ziploc bags. So I didn't have Ziploc bags to put the bottle in. And I thought maybe the lock will work this time. But so this is where I was thinking, and I wrote down in the notes section of my phone, and I still have that. I wrote, I think it was something to stop bottles from spilling so it doesn't push down. That's all I wrote, right? But I had this idea in my mind of what I wanted it to look like, but I didn't actually think too much of it until I got back to UCF. And I was like, I actually think this one could be pretty easy to make. It's because, of course, I have stuff on my phone like invention ideas. I always throw this one out there of a hot glue cheese gun for your dorm room to make grilled cheeses. Like you put the cheese stick in it. Yeah. You put the cheese stick in it and you just squirt it, like put it on the bread and we're done. But I don't know how to do technology. I'm not doing that. But this one sounded pretty easy, pretty practical to make. So again, since everything was online, I did some Googling. I looked up UCF resources, and I saw the TI Innovation Lab, that 3D printing lab there. And I emailed them, and I was like, hey, is this open to students? Kind of how can I go about this? About 10 minutes later, I got an email back from Don Harper, who runs, and I think he continues to run that lab. He was like, hey, we don't have much going on right now because of COVID. So if you want, I can hop on a Zoom and show you how to use some software. I was like, sure, that sounds great. He taught me actually how to build a car. Wow. So he taught me how to build like a little like a toy car so I could kind of look at all the aspects, the different shapes, dimensions on Onshape. So I think most people use SolidWorks if you're engineer.
That's his specialty.
Yeah.
That's his
but
specialty.
But Onshape, he said, is a more like kind of user, like beginner friendly sort of platform.
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
Yeah. So I did that, learned how to do a car, and then from there, full force, I started making mine. I'd meet with him occasionally just to be like, how do I do this? Or I'd look up YouTube videos, which are extremely helpful. And those types of things. And I just kind of started making my product.
That's incredible.
Yeah, sorry. I know it's a
honestly.
long. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. Long story, but
Building a toy car is crazy.
yeah.
That is just, I feel like there's so many like shapes and like dimensions. Like there's so many unique things, but you're using a CAD software for the first time. So that's even more impressive.
Yeah. I think he did it because of all the different elements within the toy car. Because
Uh-huh.
he didn't want me to do my exact product, right? Because he wanted me to like
Start thinking
start
about it.
thinking
yeah.
about it and kind of get a handle. But I think we were on the phone. We ended up being on the phone for on Zoom for maybe an hour and a half, like just walking through that. And it was
Wow.
we didn't finish the car,
Sure.
I will say, but we built about half of it. And then I would just play around with it. I found it super fascinating, and I was like, "Wow, maybe I can do this." You know, yeah. If I could do a car, I could make my little locks go around the bottle. Yeah.
Kudos to him for taking the time to teach you
So
because
awesome.
I'm guessing you had zero experience
Yeah.
with that beforehand. So
Yeah.
kudos to him for, taking the time to teach you from how to draw basic lines and circles to being able to like design a car to some extent.
Yeah. I know. I was so grateful, and from now, like I will always name drop him because he is awesome. I'm like, without him, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did, and without COVID happening, the engineering lab was on a little bit of a, I don't want to say like hiatus, but like they weren't doing much because the senior design projects engineers had to do. Like no one was required to be on campus. So, so they weren't printing. So the lab actually had time to help me make my prototypes. So it's all about right place, right time. Like the opportunities, like when they come up, it's so important because you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to talk to,
And then, so you were talking a little bit about your, like your prototyping process. How was it? Like, what were like the challenges that you faced while trying to bring your product to life and then into the market?
Yeah, so definitely bringing the product into the market, it's difficult, right? So, but there are so many resources out there, especially in the Orlando area, that really want to help people succeed with what they're doing. So I started kind of with, once I developed my first few prototypes, he told me about something called the Blackstone Launchpad. And that's a resource on campus to help students start businesses. He said to me, I don't know if they still exist. I think they're in the student union, but you should maybe go check them out. I was like, okay, sounds good. I ended up checking them out and saw they were having a competition going on and all that. So I entered their online competition with my product. At the time, it was called Leak Lock. And I entered it with my prototypes. I ended up buying my own 3D printer so that I'd stop bothering the innovation lab because things were getting more real. People were coming back on campus. And I bought like a cheap Ender 3 from Amazon. I think it was $150 at the time. I think they're a little more now. But I bought that. I made my first few prototypes. And then, I went to the Blackstone Launchpad. I met with Kyle White there, who was one of the mentors at the time. He was one of the student mentors. He taught me about forming an LLC, kind of walking through that whole process. And thankfully, my parents had a background. They had an LLC that they just transferred over to an S Corp. So my mom kind of helped me continue walking through that process and things. But it was really interesting seeing, okay, you could build something, but now you actually have to make a business out of it, right? Like, how are you going to make money, execute on your design? Because a lot of people stop at that design and don't follow it through. So, just really using the resources around me was a big help. And yeah.
I feel like it's super intimidating to get like a product out there because it's like, one, you're going through school, so you're like, oh, like I want to dedicate this much time into this, but this is like a side project. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, and you took that risk, and it feels like it paid off quite a bit.
Yeah, I always say, and my friends get annoyed at me for this because I do think if there's a will, there's a way. And that is probably, I know it is one of the most annoying sayings maybe to some people in the world, but I do live by that. I think if you really want to do something, you will find a way to make it happen. There's bottlenecks in everyone's life, but we all have a passion, a drive for something. So like act on it. Don't sit around and wait, and I think COVID taught me that a little bit too, with just sitting around and doing nothing for so long,
I think that all those like basic statements, like those little phrases that we hear all the time by like parents,
Yeah.
friends, teachers, whatever.
Mhm.
Money doesn't buy happiness. If there's a
Yep.
will, there's a way. All those, it's kind of cringe, I guess, when we first hear it. But
Yeah.
as we get older, there's a reason why those phrases are said by everyone and they're so popular because it's true. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's true. Like if you do put in the time and the work and you truly believe you can do it, why can't you? It
Yeah.
is possible.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, now I have to tell my parents, like, hey, you know what? You actually were right.
Yeah, you
Like,
guys were
maybe,
right.
yeah. It's like, no, but
Did you have some self doubt throughout the process?
I still do to this day.
Oh.
I think there's, with everything that I've been through, even outside of engineering and working in education and doing all that stuff, like there's always going to be those moments where I'm like, am I following the right path? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? But, I do hear, going back to that parent thing too, like my dad's had 1,000 careers before he landed on what he did. But it's so different nowadays where I feel like everyone feels like they need to get stuck in something. Right. And so I consistently have those doubts. Like maybe I wasn't the right person to do it. Maybe, if I did get an engineering degree, I'd be better off. But it's just surrounding myself with those mentors and those people that really support me that I think help reel me back in sometimes. And with putting myself out there, putting yourself out there is scary, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
I am going to backtrack a little bit because I am kind of curious. How many prototypes did it take before you like got to your final product?
Oh my God. Yeah, I can't even tell you. Man, me figuring out. So I will say building that 3D printer too, just
that
to,
Ender
for a
3,
second,
yeah.
having no engineering background, trying to build a 3D printer, I thought I was going to kill someone. That was probably, I was like, this makes no sense. Like an engineer wrote these directions. No, but like I couldn't, it was so crazy, like kind of figuring that side out of things. But, once I had that done, making the prototypes, there's so many small tweaks to make. But that was what was great about my product is it only took about 2 hours to print. Some people have products that take 24. I know
Right.
I ended up engineering a product for someone else. Like afterward, like a couple years later. And that one took me 14 hours to print. And, as soon as it has a little mistake with the
Yeah.
printer, like the infill and all that stuff, like, oh my gosh, I had to restart it. It's crazy. So, but it was important to me to make sure it was how I wanted. But I do think sometimes people over-engineer, right? So you have to get a version out there to get feedback. And that's something people miss a lot. They want to get it perfect the first try. But then you're going to waste so much money on these prototypes and things like that. So, but I did probably, that's a long answer to your, to what you asked. But I probably made upwards of 60 prototypes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which over a 1 year time span. I mean, I did launch fairly quickly with what I was doing, I will say, because I launched within a year. But 60 prototypes was, it was a lot to go through. Because it was just the smallest measurement was off when I printed it. And I was like, no, because every printer is a little different too,
Right, yeah.
which I didn't know.
Yeah.
I learned by doing
Yeah.
that was something I had to factor in as well.
Was it an old Ender 3, so you had to like auto bed level, or like it didn't have any auto bed leveling?
So it was a brand new one.
Okay.
Yeah, so it did have it, but I had to figure out what all that meant. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of my side of it, was it wasn't natural to me. And I was like figuring out, it tells you, piece of paper should just be barely scratched in it. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, yeah, so.
That's
But
fair.
yeah, it was cool to walk through though.
Well, I guess we'll move on from that. Well, before we move on, so just to be clear, your product is a device that you put on the end of like a lotion bottle that prevents it from closing. Is that?
Yeah.
It.
So yeah, so my apologies for not saying it before, but so now it's called Drip Lock. And I officially launched it. I did a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign to raise money. I bootstrapped it the rest of the way because I didn't want to take money from everyone else. I was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Like, it's going to be all me.
Right.
I did pitch competitions, which I so recommend for anyone trying to start something because it's great for validation too and kind of perfecting your prototype. But what it is it's a stackable device that goes around a pump bottle like lotion, face wash, hand sanitizer to prevent them from spilling when you travel. So it's adjustable to the height of the bottle. Some people even use it for regulating product. They don't stack it all the way. They regulate it so they only get the perfect pump every time, the right amount of product. But that's in that's
In a
what I
nutshell.
created. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
I know I've had some times where I'm traveling and I'm like, I have a lotion bottle like in my backpack and it's exploded so many times. So I will be checking out the Drip Lock.
Yeah.
No, that's actually such a simple but great product.
Yeah.
I think it's like a perfect example of just whenever you're starting a business or creating a product, it's supposed to solve a problem. Like it's
Yes.
not supposed to be cool or whatever. At the end of the day, it's supposed to solve a problem. And that's exactly what your product does.
Yeah, and that's a mistake I actually made at first was I was like, you know what? I'm doing it for travel, like whatever. And then I was like, oh, I'm also going to do child safety, like to stop kids from getting into stuff, like hand sanitizer and all that. But then I was like, I have to reel myself back a little bit. You have to pick one specific target market, which is also a big mistake a lot of inventors make is, oh, I'm for everyone.
Yeah.
You're never for everyone. You have to pick your niche. So I did surveys like Google Forms. I posted them in Facebook groups, just asking very simple questions to properly identify like which one I wanted to really go after. Because that determined my packaging. That determines my website, my Kickstarter campaign. It goes into so much more than you think, that target market, because it's that packaging. Who are you trying to appeal to? If it's for parents, that's going to look completely different than travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are all factors that outside of the engineering that people don't think about, but it's a lot. It's a lot to work through.
Do you have any more questions about Drip Lock?
No, I don't. If you want to go ahead and move on.
All right, so now we'll move on. So that was a previous project. I guess it's still going on, but
Yeah.
that started a while back. So as of right now, what are you doing for work now? What do you do on a day-to-day?
Yeah, so I have a few, I always have a few things going on. But I just actually quit my full-time job. I was working a full-time job for a year. I was very grateful having an elementary ed degree, kind of going into the high-tech startup space. So I worked for a company called the Florida High Tech Corridor. And I learned so much from them as well with grants, SBIR and STTR, which I don't know if you guys know those grants, but they're from the federal, or they're from the federal government. For doing research and things like that. But I quit that because I really wanted to do my own business. I realized I'm 22 years old. If I'm going to do my own business, now's the time. When I don't have thousands of other responsibilities other than obviously my current paying for my apartment and all that. But I also do work part-time as well for the United Inventors Association. So we go around to trade shows, we do education for inventors and all of that. I substitute teach occasionally just to make that extra money.
Yeah.
But then I also work for Earmark Sourcing and I actually help people manufacture their products, which is really cool. So that's also a full circle moment for me going from, having no background in engineering to now I'm thinking of solutions for other people's products and helping engineer them, manufacture them for their ideas to become reality.
Is that almost like a consultant, like through, you said Armark?
Earmark Sourcing. Yeah. So in a sense, so we consult because the president of the United Inventors Association, which is a nonprofit, also is in charge of Earmark Sourcing.
Gotcha.
So we consult, but we also do manufacture items. Like we do projects that are like $100,000 for 50,000 units. You know what I mean? Like we do fully. We have different factories in different countries, and I'm just a program manager to continue working in this space because I love it now. Now that I'm in it, I love it. Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
So are you working? You work like a lot. I'm guessing. You seem
Yeah,
very busy.
yeah.
You have a lot of things going on.
For sure.
You're an entrepreneur now. How do you go about balancing all the different responsibilities and businesses and priorities you have? How do you balance those different projects?
Yeah, I do think it's important. So for a long time, I was a person who wasn't very organized. I am very ADHD brained, like very scattered all the time. It makes sense to me, but not maybe to everyone else. But something about me is I can't sit still. So I enjoy, like I said, helping others, even that earmark sourcing side or the UIA side. Like I'm still impacting people's lives, helping their inventions become a reality, right? So, but with that, I have my own business now that I just started with helping kids to invent and things there. And I do have to block out times to do certain things. I am a person, I don't like to cross what I'm doing. If I'm there for a United Inventors Association event, I am there for United Inventors Association event. If something else gets brought up, of course I'll mention it. But I do have certain hobbies that I have to carve time out for just for mental health reasons. Like I love sports. So I'm very big on baseball, which today's actually opening day. I know everyone's going to watch this a little later, but today is MLB opening day. I go to every UCF baseball game. You'll always catch me at the UCF baseball games, as well as UCF football. I'm a huge college football fan, even beyond UCF. My sister went to Penn State, so they're kind of like my second team there. But it's all about balance of finding what you enjoy and taking that break. I'm working when I'm working, but when I need that clarity, it's okay to take a break sometimes. And that's something I've had to learn as a people pleaser. I do need to prioritize myself sometimes and enjoy the things. Like if I'm at the game, I'm there. I'm not going to answer my phone for those 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You said you have a business where you're like teaching kids.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, so I actually just started that, and I just launched it. I debuted it at South by Southwest EDU in Austin, Texas, about 2 weeks ago. But what it is, it's called Innovation Station Kits, and it's a series of 4 kits that teach the true invention process, hands-on learning, opposed to technology. So I want to teach kids now that you don't have to be super good at math to create something. You know what I mean? You don't have to be super good at technology, computers. Just solving problems is the basis of inventing, right? So their 4 kits are understanding problems to creating solutions, and then they get to invent, leading up to a pitch competition at the end.
Wow.
So they actually walk through literally the whole process of inventing.
What age group is that?
So it's primarily K through 6th, but I did that because I wrote storybooks that go along with each kit to help them relate to characters. So they're STEM kits, but also tie in a little bit of literacy there. They do so that K through 6, even though the book is kind of more that age range, sometimes I know I enjoy reading a picture book rather than Romeo and Juliet in high school. I want to go back to the basics and kind of have fun with it. So I do have that primary target age range, but I've had some teachers interested elsewhere.
Pretty cool. So I'm guessing schools reach out to you about it.
Yeah, that I'm doing a lot of outreach right now to try and get an audience since I am a startup. So I did the whole B2C side, right? That business to consumer side with DripLock. And now I'm exploring a whole new space because, I love to keep myself on the edge of B2C. So now I'm reaching out to after school care programs. I worked with Girl Scouts Citrus Council for a bit, which is in Orlando. And I'm continuing to work with them they have a patch for creating entrepreneurship and inventing. Who knew, right? So my kits can kind of help them earn that patch.
Oh, wow.
And then, so it was something I didn't even know when I was creating them. You never know who you're going to talk to. And so I had some great mentors like Cassie Willard, and she's on the board for Girl Scouts. And she was like, hey, I think your kits would be great for this. And I was like, awesome, thank you. So I did a focus group and all that. But this is something I'm really passionate about because it goes back to my roots of elementary ed, helping others, but then also that engineering side. I'm tying it all kind of together with invention education.
Wow, that's really
so cool.
that's
Thank
really
you.
impressive. That's really impressive.
Oh, thank you.
So what are your future goals as far as business, career? What are your future goals for that?
Yeah, so I do want to be successful. I want to create an impact, but I also do need to come back to reality sometimes of I'm not going to be 22 forever and I do need to make money to start kind of like building a life for myself. So with that, I want to continue helping others with manufacturing and things like that because I love this world. But with the kits, I want to eventually, I would love to see it become like a district-wide competition of doing like, I grew up in Tampa and we had something called Tropicana Speech, which was, all the fourth graders, they compete in the classroom, they do a speech or like a 1-minute elevator pitch, and then you move on to the classroom level, then you do the school-wide level, and then everyone does a district level. So that's kind of what I see for the kits, right? Invent something for yourself, compete in the classroom, someone moves on to the school-wide for your grade, then someone moves on to the district level for your grade. That's the overall picture, and I'd love to tie in with some national programs, help kids get grants to continue inventing and engineering, and just kind of inspiring them like, hey, you don't have to, even if you're not good at a certain subject, it all comes together. You know what I mean? Like in high school when I took statistics, that was essentially reading, certain to an extent, all of this comes together. And when you're K through 6, you're still told, hey, you could be whatever you want to be. You don't have to think about what career you want yet.
Right.
You're still creative mind, creative focus. And there's always that debate of, is the entrepreneurial mindset taught or is it natural? Right? That's a huge debate that we hear all the time. And so I want to say like, hey, you know what? It is taught. At an impressionable age, they can comprehend what's going on and you can really impact their lives in the future.
Do you believe it's taught?
I believe to an extent it is taught, yes.
And in those competitions, are they actually creating products? Or are they just going about thinking about it and like delivering a pitch?
So they're actually creating through my kits. So I have like guided inventor activities. So I meet them halfway for the first 2 of understanding problems before creating solutions. And then in the third kit, they invent, right? So now they create something of their own using materials around them. And you're making a very basic prototype, right? An MVP. So even if they want to incorporate technology in the future, that's great. Teachers can continue that lesson down the line, but just showing like you can make this basic prototype to put it out there through the pitch, kind of show how you want it to operate, how you want it to work, and then you get feedback and that's how you improve. That's the whole inventor process. Like I help people engineer stuff right now and, we're trying to tell them, you get the version out and then you make a version 2, then you make a version 3. You're constantly going to be inventing, right? You're constantly going to be making changes based on what people tell you. So just getting that basic thing going and then doing the pitches is what I want to teach.
Sure. So this is for like aspiring engineers. Like I feel like you kind of already answered this, but what should engineering students or like young professionals do if they have an idea for a product?
Yeah, so definitely get involved with some organizations around you. There are a ton of national organizations that are free for you to attend. And especially within a university, like it is important, that engineering side, but also maybe if you're more engineer brained and the business side is a little more difficult, find that partner you can work with. Find someone who you get along with, but who also pushes you, because you do need that. You don't want someone who agrees with you all the time, right? You want someone who's going to help you get better. That competitive side, growing up, being in sports, right? Like if you're the best on the team all the time, you're just going to plateau.
You're not going to get better.
Yeah, you're not going to get any better. So, kind of just going beyond your boundaries, getting out of your comfort zone for sure. If you want to make something and just act on it. You can sit in your room and engineer, fix it all day, but it's actually making that product, putting it out there for people to see. That's when you'll get things going, things moving.
I love that with this project we have, even though it's not like an engineering
actual
product.
Yeah.
I love that it was an idea we came up with a few months ago, like in a group where we were just working with friends.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just like we said it, but we took action. We both like taught each other things along the way. Like I knew absolutely nothing about editing videos. I know you remember the first video we edited. I just sat next to him as he went crazy and did everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like now I'm
Sommie's a
proficient
better
enough.
editor than me right
Yeah,
now.
like you never know and everything. You know what I mean? Like meet people who are gonna get you outside. But that's so cool. That's like a perfect example.
And I love that we just started it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
That's
I've
great.
mentioned it to some people. I don't know if it's happened to you, but some people have said, "Oh, I've thought about doing that."
Right.
You know, people have said, "Oh, like that's cool." I feel like I thought about doing that, but we
Yeah.
took action on it,
Yeah.
and we're starting it. We're being consistent. We're reaching out to people, and we're actually making it happen.
Yeah. And congratulations for that. Because that's a
Thank you,
huge
thank
step. You know what I mean? Like it's scary, but it's awesome.
Absolutely. And Sommie's the one who's always like pushing me. He's like, hey, like, let's get this video out. I'm like, Sommie, we got some like work to do. He's like, yeah, but you can also like, we can knock out an episode. We can knock out a couple recordings. I was like, you're right. Like, let's do it.
Yeah. You'll find the time, you know?
And like I have a lot more free time than him right now, so I feel like I'm trying to make sure I'm doing my part because I know once I graduate, things will be different.
Yeah.
And there'll be times where I won't be able to do as much, and then he'll have to pull the weight.
Right.
But that's what partnerships are for, you know. We
Yeah.
push each other, help each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Sure. Awesome.
so I'm gonna also backtrack again. How do you take an idea from concept to reality?
Yeah, so there's a lot of steps along the way, right? So kind of having that, once you have that idea, as I mentioned, kind of look for resources around you that can help you, because I'm sure there are a ton of people who can help you. And keeping things low cost. Don't go to that consultant who's going to charge you 10 grand to help you. Oh, make all these promises, right? You can make that basic MVP of what you want to do. And don't be afraid to get it out there. A lot of people want to wait until they have their utility patent issued.
Okay.
You don't have to. Lawyers might go against me with saying that, but with that, there are different types of patents you can file. So file that provisional patent. It's low cost. It gives you a year to file for a utility patent. And I guarantee you're going to make changes from that initial idea to launch. But a provisional saves your place in line, right? So it saves your place in line. So when you do file that utility, like no one else can get you before that. You know what I mean? Like it still gives you protection. But that's something I personally recommend. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Consult your lawyers for legal advice. But also find that lawyer who's not gonna, I want to do patents for you. You know what I mean? Like find someone who's gonna give you real advice there. But don't just jump. Start talking to friends and family and get real feedback. Tell them I don't want this BS. Give me the real feedback of what you think about what I'm doing, right? Like, do you like the way this is? Do you like the way that is? And start kind of tinkering, adjusting for that. Enter those competitions, I think are great. Like I mentioned, for validation, getting funding in. There's a lot of grant funding out there that you could do. But just kind of finding the right people to trust along the way, I think is really important. So reach out to your network and see who knows who trusts who. And factor that all in. And you don't have to go with what everyone says. You know, you know your product better than anyone else. That's what I always say. Don't be scared to put it out there, because that's what a lot of people are. They're scared, even if you don't want to admit it. You know, you could work on a product for 2-3 years without getting it out there, but that's just that's wasting your money and your time. You know, so focus on it, set some time aside, get through it. You can reach out to people like me, people like you guys, you know, who might have connections in the space. Like, hey, would you mind just helping me? I'm really stuck on this one little piece of engineering, like this one, my CAD model isn't operating like I want it to, whatever that may be. And people will help you if you ask, you know? So that's like, I know that's not a direct answer. Everyone's path's different, but just getting it out there is the most important process for ideating to actually launching, and kind of like doing your research, seeing what's best. Look at other products that are similar in your industry, you know.
You won a competition, right? Like at UCF?
Yeah, so I did a few here. I did the Big Idea competition. I won $500. I think 500. $500. I got second place in that. And then I was actually the youngest person to do the Joust. So the Joust is the big competition at UCF. So I made it to the finals, which if you're in the finals, you're guaranteed. It's a Shark Tank pitch style competition. I got $2,000 through that. I got fourth place. I think someone has now dethroned me from my youngest to compete, but I don't remember. And then I did some outside competitions too. I did like NABO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. I won that. And just a few extra here and there, you know, to get things going and just get that extra money to help support. But there are a lot of pitch competitions you could do to get funding.
And then, so what are some like common mistakes that you see new entrepreneurs make? I know you like dabbled in it a little bit earlier, but any like big red flags?
Yeah. Saying you have no competition. You always have competition.
Ooh.
That's a big thing. It throws off judges, anything you do. It throws off people you talk to. Even if you think you've created something no one's ever seen before, the competition is someone not using it, right? Like, because obviously if it wasn't created yet, it might not be the absolute need. But everyone wants to protect their baby and everyone thinks they created something brand new. So like for my product, I say I have no direct competition, but I have indirect competition.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things like built-in locks. Ziploc bags are competition, right, for drip lock. Using nothing is competition for drip lock. And even those disposable clasps, like nothing does the same thing as mine where it's a reusable, stackable device, adjustable, but there are alternatives out there. So that is a huge red flag when people say they have no competition, for sure. Yeah. And then also, of course, the over-engineering is a big thing, kind of, because you can come out with different versions. And then jumping to a solution without properly identifying your target market. Your product's not for everyone. You have to identify who is going to use it, for sure.
Well, I am out of questions, Sommie, if you have any more.
Before we close it out, I just wanted to say congratulations for
Thank you,
everything
thank
you've
you.
accomplished, because we're the same age.
Yeah,
You know?
no,
That's
no, I
crazy.
think and congratulations. Everyone follows a different path. You know what I mean? So congratulations for everything you guys have accomplished. And it's so cool to be here. I'm like, oh my God, I was invited on a podcast. That's so fun. No, this is awesome.
I feel so happy to have you on here.
No,
Like,
thank you.
Genuinely, it's really, really inspiring journey. Like, I want to make something now. Like, I
Yeah,
want to
thank
go
you.
out there and start getting
Thank you.
something and make something.
Yeah. Well, let me know. I'm here for whatever you need. Yeah. But I do want to learn from you guys too with engineering. You know, I'm constantly learning and building up that stuff. So I just appreciate you guys having me on, and I've learned from you too. So thank you.
I'm taking this one class right now. It's called Technological Entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of the things I've learned in that class you've touched on, like the multiple iterations and the constant iterations of your product, like the MVPs.
Yeah.
Is a minimum viable product.
Yeah.
Yeah, MVPs, like going to like trade shows or like pitching just
Yeah.
to get some like validation on your product and get feedback. Like all that stuff that we talk about in class, it's nice to see someone that went through it and is, you know, running their own business, that you actually have to do all that. Like all that stuff is actually important.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
just something they're telling us in class. Like these are things you need to consider and be doing
Yeah.
whenever you're starting a business.
Yeah, and everyone's going to make mistakes. You know, and that's what goes back to when you were talking about do you have any doubts? Like, oh my God, I made so many mistakes. Like I had so many doubts about myself, and I still do. Like, because you're constantly learning. The market's constantly changing. New technology's changing everything. So like marketing is awful. Like all the people who do marketing, so much kudos to you, because it is hard,
Yeah,
you know, if
it
you're
is.
not, it's just constantly a changing industry of everything. So yeah, but that's awesome. Yeah. That's a great class. Really
Yeah, it
awesome.
is. Well, do you have any final words of wisdom for any aspiring engineers or entrepreneurs?
No, I just think build your network and do it. Like just do it. Nike's got it right.
Yeah,
like get things going, you know?
All right, well, can you tell us where people can connect with you or learn a little bit about DripLock or anything else you have working on?
Yeah, so they can check out my LinkedIn has most of my stuff. So they can follow me, Kelly Shea, on LinkedIn and connect with me there. They can always reach out to me. And then also they can contact me through my website. So buydriplock.com, BUY, and then innovationstationkits.com also. So I have a few different ways, but always reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Kelly.
thank you.
We'll make
Awesome.
sure to link everything and then
Cool.
show some love for Shay.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I can't wait to share this.